like to call this meeting to order of the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Katie Huffey. Here. Todd Jefferson. Here. Steve Douglas.
Here.
David Galt.
Here.
Randy Baxley.
Here.
Rita Music. Here. Donnie Tabor.
Here.
John McGraw. Here. Russell Turner.
Here.
Tim Seals.
Here.
Sammy Solomon.
Here.
Robert Blevins.
Here.
Gene Esslinger. Randy Bales.
Here.
John Neal Scarlett.
Here.
Terry Dockery.
Here.
Robert Tucker.
Here.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Here.
David Seal.
Here.
Bob Beeler.
Here.
Barbara Sheets.
Here.
Would you please stand for a prayer by Chaplain Donnie Tabor?
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this opportunity, Lord, to serve you. Help us to seek your wisdom, to seek your grace, Father, in all that we do. Help us to understand the needs of the people of Jefferson County. Help us to respond in such a way that we'll be caring and loving and the way that you would do it, Lord Jesus. Dear Heavenly Father, as we go in this time, give us wisdom, give us understanding that we may do things as you would do them, Father. In your holy and precious name I pray. Amen.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry.
Mr. Esslinger still out with
All righty, thank you, Mr.
Thank you, man.
Mr. Rob. Okay, we have approval and corrections to the agenda. Mr. Tucker.
There was an item of new business I'd ask to be placed on here that's not. If we could put that on there. It was discussion and action related to adequate facilities tax.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker, and we'll put that at the, that will be after H of new business. You have before you minutes from the regular monthly session and the special call session.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Scarlett to approve and a second by Mr. Seals. I have one appearance of citizens, Mr. David Gerard. You're going to address county debt, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes or so.
Thank you. As you know, obviously, you are looking at borrowing, and again, another over $7 million. And not only are you looking to borrow that money, you're suggesting that we only pay the interest on that money until 2026. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over again, expecting a different result. If you remember back in the late 90s and early 2000s, we had a county commission and a mayor that decided to do the very same thing. The rationale then and now is in 2026, Jefferson County is going to be rolling over, we're going to have plenty of money, we can pay for everything. You know that's not the case. Things are going to come along that you can't even think of that we're going to have to pay for. We're so far in debt now we can't even see out. And the school board keeps coming up every time we turn around. We built 2 new schools, completely renovating the high school, and now they're wanting more money. If I had my way, we would not even pass this bond issue. But if you're going to do it, please don't pass the principal payment down to 2026. don't give that as a gift to the students graduating in 2026. The rationale is always, it's for the students, it's for the students. Well, if you're really wanting to do something for the students, don't saddle them with this debt. That would be the best thing you could do. Perhaps someone could give us a history lesson on exactly what happened during that time frame. I would appreciate it. I don't have the exact figures, but at that time, for a number of years, all we did was pay on the interest, never paid on the principal, and that's one of the reasons we're in the situation we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along to approval of notaries and bonds, we have 3 additions: a Brooke Singleton, a Teresa Fincham, and a Frida Miller to add to your list, with apologies from Mr. Frank. Ms. Rita Music made a motion. Who seconded it? Mr. John.
Could you repeat the names?
Be a Brooke Singleton, Teresa Fincham, and a Frida Miller. Anyone else? Anyone opposed? So moved. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, County Commissioner, I have a couple items, and I also have some comments to be made. To begin with, though, I would like to ask Roger Minott to come forward, if he would. Some of you know Mr. Minott. He is the administrator of our nursing home. At the last work session, there was some discussion, and one commissioner asked Mr. Minott could be here to go ahead and give a little background information on the nursing home. I asked him to be here, and the chairman, if we could introduce him at this time, because he does have to leave immediately after his comments. He has a meeting in Nashville. Before I turn it loose on Mr. Minott, I'd just like to say a lot of recognition has been focused on the nursing home in Jefferson County for a lot of the good things they've done. The greenhouse, the nursing home operation itself receives high praise not only through the state of Tennessee, but the Southeast as well. His idea and his concept about having a greenhouse and putting that project together has been overwhelming, not only for Jefferson County, but also a lot of the nursing homes across the country that are interested in doing so. His high achievement has been recognized by Nashville, as Governor Haslam has appointed him to a very special board, the Board of Licensing for Healthcare Facilities. That's a high honor, and with that, I'll now turn it over to Mr. Minott and let him have his side.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mayor Palmieri, for such kind comments. I truly do appreciate that so very much. As a matter of record, for your information, I did include a copy of our audited financial report for the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2014. I think it was in your packet for this quarterly meeting, and as an information-only type document. Excuse me. Just kind of a few high points of the audit. The nursing home is required by state law to have an annual audit, so we always do. It was a clean audit, I'm happy to report. It was an unqualified audit, which is what you always want when you have an audit. And there were no findings of any material weaknesses when it comes to matters of financial control. So all in all, it was a good, clean audit, and always has been, so we're proud of that. The accounting firm we use is Lattimore, Black, Morgan & Kane, and they're a great CPA firm. They're very tough, but have very tough standards, but we always feel like we get a good audit from them. Overall, I guess just an overall comment, we were not as successful financially this past year as we were the year before that. There was some rationale for that, primarily due to changes in Medicare reimbursement laws. We were able to collect less bad debt from Medicare than we had in years past. Our expenses were up approximately 3.2% over the prior year. And thirdly, our occupancy rate was down about 0.7%. So when you combined all of these factors, it led to us not being as successful financially as we were the year before. But basically, that's the high points. There were no surprises in the audit. It was pretty standard and pretty routine. If you have any general questions, I would be happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, as the mayor said, I'll be on my way to Nashville.
Mr. John McGraw.
First of all, thanks for coming, Roger. I am different than anybody else in this room in that my patients went to Jefferson County Nursing Home for all those years. And I will say that I always felt good when the social workers, when the case management nurses and whatnot said, Ms. John Doe is going to Jefferson County Nursing Home. I always felt good about that because, of course, personally, I had an aunt with you for 5 years, got superb care. This is a great report. Thank you. I'm in charge of reading a lot of these at the national level, and this is a very good report, and I commend y'all for getting such a good CPA firm to do that. Good. But I commend you a lot more for the great care you give to our county, and every citizen in this county should be appreciative of the wonderful work that you and your staff do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much.
Anyone else? Mr. Minot, I thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item I have is a resolution that we discussed at the last work session, Resolution 2015-02 CDBG grant. That, as I said last week, is just a normal process. We apply for it every year. There is no cost to Jefferson County on that.
Mr. Tucker.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second, Mr. McGraw. Does anyone oppose? So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is Public Records Committee. I had a request from the chairman of that committee. Wayne Roberts is asked to take the place of Mr. Clay Patterson, who's moving away. So I'd like to ask the commission to confirm the appointment of Wayne Roberts.
So moved. Second.
Anyone opposed?
Mr. Chairman, let me just close with making a couple of brief comments about wheel tax, hotel motel tax, debt, financial condition of the county. Almost 9 years ago when I came in the office, we discovered that we were $64 million in debt. We're now over $80 million in debt. If you add the principal and interest together, probably around $130 million in debt. That's where we stand today. We had a resident that acknowledged and made comments about the debt that we had several years ago, that we were not paying on the principal, and that is true. When I came in the office, the whole program was set up to pay on interest only. We had $25 million, 3 different bond issues, one for $10 million, another for $10 million, one for $5 million, and there was no payments being allocated toward the principal. It was interest only, and that buries you. And I have stood here time and time again to caution and warn about our indebtedness. And I do so because I have a strong feeling the former commission is the one that put us in the shape we're in right now. Now, does that alleviate this commission from it? No, you just inherited a rough ride. and you're going to have to make decisions. You're going to have to do some things that aren't pleasant. I have put together different proposals and different plans over the years to help alleviate the debt and get us out of the debt. Were they pleasant? No. Were they hurtful? Yeah, they were hurtful, but that's the part that we have to go through when we have individuals that are willing to put us so far and so deep into debt. A lot of that comes from people that are not financially aware of things. If you can't read a financial statement, if you can't read an audit report, you really don't have any business being on the budget committee. You don't have any business on the finance committee. You don't have any business voting on the debt because you don't know what you have. We are in serious trouble, and we're going to have to come out of it one way or another. Now, I have offered to work with County Commission in developing some plans. I don't think we need piecemeal anything. I think we need to have a complete plan, a complete packet. And that's where we've been in trouble in the past, over the last 8 years that I have been here, because we used knee-jerk reaction rather than a solid plan on how to get from where we are to where we need to be. We talk about hiring an individual for security, but we don't talk about the fact that we need a human resource person. We talk about adding different personnel here and there, especially on emergency services, but you've got to remember the heartbeat of the emergency services is 911. Now, over the years, there have been numerous employees added to law enforcement, to fire departments, to EMS. There's been calls after calls that have increased dramatically. We've got the same little group of people handling those calls. They can't handle them all. So when you take a step or you take action, you need to know how it impacts the rest of the operation. I say all this to get back to saying one thing. We need planning. We don't need knee-jerk reaction. We need a comprehensive plan. We need to recognize the trouble that we're in financially, and we need to put together a plan together that we can come out of it. Raising a wheel tax to try to offset raising property taxes, when the reality of it is you're going to have to raise a wheel tax and property tax. When we gave away that money, and I'll say this one last time, hopefully, when the money was given to the schools, $53 million, and said it could be done without raising taxes, that was a lie on the residents of this county, because it could not be done. It can't be done. I hope you'll be fiscally responsible, and I hope you'll be open-minded, and I hope that you'll deal with issues not based on personalities or likes or dislikes, but based upon facts and a solid plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving right along to B. Sheriff, do you have anything? Any question or comment for the sheriff?
Can I respond to the mayor's comment?
Yes, ma'am, shortly. Sure.
I take it as an insult, him saying it was previous commission. He's as much to blame as the commission for getting us in debt. My husband was on county commission for 18 years. Nobody was any tighter with money than my husband. He did not believe in raising taxes. He didn't believe it. I don't think the mayor should blame the previous commission for anything. That's in the past. Let's go on, move forward, and forget it.
Thank you, Ms. Reader. Moving right along, register deeds. Question or comment? You have the report. Moving right along to County Clerk Frank Harrington. You have the report. Circuit Sessions Court Clerk Penny Murphy could not be with us this evening. She has a heavy criminal caseload and was going to work late into the evening this evening. Moving right along to the Highway Superintendent Charles Tipton. You have before you approval and acceptance of county roads and removal of one road from the road list. Mr. Tipton, do you have anything to add? Question or comment?
We need a motion to approve?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Todd Kesterson, seconded by Mr. Tim Seals. Does anyone oppose this business? If not, so moved. County Trustee Ginger Franklin, you have the second quarter report. Question or comment? H, we're down to Finance Director, Mr. Langdon Potts. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. You have in front of you the resolutions for the surplus equipment that we talked about in the work session. Any questions on that? Sheriff's Department, my department, and the school systems.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Scarlett made the motion. Mr. Sammy Solomon seconded it.
Okay, I'd like to defer the discussion on debt until we get to new business where it's on there. But there's
Mr. Potts, hang on just a second and let us vote on this so we can take them one at a time. Resolution 2014-33, declare surplus dispose of equipment. Finance Department. Are you gonna keep with your?
Well, I got out of order there.
We have a motion in a second. Mr. Kesterson.
Can we take items 1 through 7 as a whole?
Yes, sir, we can. It does not impact fund balance.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
1 through 7. We have a motion on the floor and duly seconded. Does anybody oppose? So moved. Mr. Potts.
Okay, I'd like to defer number 7 and 8 till we get to the bond on the new items, if that's okay.
Sure.
And then on statements that were distributed, any question on those?
Question or comment?
Yeah.
Items 8 and 9.
That's what I would like to defer till we get to new business.
Okay.
It's the bonds listed on new business, so we don't get bogged down with that. And the only other item I have in the letter that I sent yesterday to the County Commission with some numbers that were asked about added with facilities, wheel tax, those type of things. At the bottom of that letter, I have a mistake on the EDOC number for 2013 and 14. Should say 180 and not 133.
Any question or comment? Mr. Potts? If not, thank you, sir. Moving right along to I. Emergency Communications. Mr. Justin Crawford, question or comment? Building Inspector Rob Wilson, quarter report. Question or comment? EMS Director Brad Phillips, second quarter report. Question or comment? Environmental Services Director Tom Carter, second quarter report. Question or comment? Veteran Service Matthew Underwood, second quarter report. Wheel Tax Compliance Officer Tim Satterfield, second quarter report. Director of Schools Dr. Charles Edmonds. Thank you, Mr. Edmonds. President, CEO Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Darrell Helton. You have your December 2014 report. Mr. Helton, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I have been asked to bring this a flow chart on the Chamber of Commerce and EDOC, and I have that to pass out now. And of course, I'll leave that with you, and then you can call me if you have any questions about that. I also know, I think Mr. Wagley called you and talked to you about the request. Is that correct, right?
He did, and and I just need some clarification on what he told me. He said that they had bought them through Yvonne Images or whatever it is.
Yeah, Michael Yvonne. Right.
And I asked him if he thought that was a well thought out plan. I said, I didn't ask you where you bought them. I said, I asked you where they were printed. And he said, well, it doesn't matter where they're printed. And I said, well, I thought if you're going to have shop local, it'd be a good idea to have them printed here. He said it didn't really matter, that as long as we were doing business here, it was a lot like Walmart, that all that tax money circulated here. And I didn't know if that was a correct statement, that all your tax money circulates in the county. It just seems like that is a poorly thought out plan, Mr. Helton, that to have them printed, actually were printed out of state. And if, by his theory then, if we send all our money out of state and only keep the taxes, it's good for business in Jefferson County. Is that right, or is that a pretty good economic model, or how's that work?
No, I don't agree with that necessarily. Now, while we did contract initially with a Jefferson County resident, we should have at least encouraged him or talked to him about where are you going to buy these labels from. So we were partially right. But I tell you that...
Is that like being a little pregnant?
Yeah, a little pregnant, right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I will see, again, there's several changes that needs to be made at the chamber, and that's one that I will make sure that we will do business in Jefferson County if at all possible. Because you're right, it's kind of crazy for us to keep harping shop locally and then we don't do it ourselves. Doesn't make too much sense, does it?
Didn't to me.
And I'll apologize for him not getting back to you with that information on a more timely basis. I promise to correct that as well. And then again, I promise that, I think I told you before, I will be bringing to you each work session another report on different aspects of the chamber to hopefully get you all educated and for us to develop better communication with the chamber and EDOC. We're having a meeting tomorrow of the chamber directors and then an EDOC meeting in February. I hope that there can be some good dialogue made with those directors in reference to what I talked about last week. So I'll get back with you in our March meeting.
Mr. Go.
Can you tell me the difference in a flow chart, the difference between a solid line and a dashed line?
Yes, that means it's, in other words here, is that my duties correspond with the Jefferson County Board of Directors, or EDOC Board of Directors. While I'm not officially an EDOC employee, I work very, very closely with them because they're our economic arm of the chamber. And so, for instance, in meetings, I'm at all meetings. I help the two people at EDOC prepare the agenda, prepare reports. I'm involved in that because that's part of what the chamber does as well. So while I don't hire them, I couldn't fire them, I'm still very, very much involved in what they do. Remember, EDOC was formed mainly to attract those private investors. And EDOC was formed as a 501c3 because then their money that they invested could be tax deductible to the extent of the law. So that was one of the reasons that it was formed as well, because the chamber is not. And so that was done, and again, remember, all of this was formulated out of that Build a Better Future plan as citizens kind of met and talked about it, and they wanted this to happen in this way. So that's why it's a dotted line. I'm involved in it, and obviously need to be involved in that. That's just like with IDB. Now I'm going to be going to all the IDB meetings, and Garrett and I, hopefully the IDB will listen to recommendations and information that we may bring them, but yet we're really not over the IDB. So it's somewhat of the same relationship.
Mr. Seal, then Mr. John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the Board of Directors of EDOC its governing agency or governing board? Do they govern the decisions made by EDOC?
Yes.
I understand the government connections, those standing board members like the chairman of county commission, like the finance director, but there are some other board members. Is that correct?
Yes, there's what I call 4 public officials. I guess the finance director is not. He's not an elected official.
How are those private directors chosen?
The other board members discussed it and decided who to be there. Now, honestly, and I think I said this last time, as has been the practice, it's been your larger investors that's been put on the board because they've got a lot of skin in the game.
That brings me to my next question. Since the taxpayers' money is intermingled with the private money, who are the private investors and how much did they contribute?
I think I gave you the $1.2 million is what's been contributed over the last 8 years. That information is what I'm talking about. Once we get this lawsuit settled, we find out what's kind of going on. That information I hope to make available to everyone.
So you're not willing at this time to tell me who those private investors are and how much they've contributed?
Not at this time, but I will. We got to get this lawsuit settled, David. I mean, we got to be careful about that. This commission needs to be careful about it because of what legal ramifications might happen from this lawsuit, win or lose. We need to be careful about what we do with that. And I just mentioned when EDOC meets in February, we're going to talk about those things. Just like I'm going to talk with the board of directors of the chamber tomorrow when we meet about those things.
Mr. John McGraw.
Darrell, I asked for the flow chart at the work session. You got it to me the very next day. Thank you very much. The only problem with this flow chart, Chamber of Commerce flow chart, is very self-explanatory. It almost looks like EDOC is an afterthought on this flow chart. This doesn't help me. What I'm trying to learn is what is the relationship of EDOC to the chamber and vice versa, and I'm still not getting the answers. And so I'm patient. I'm not saying you got to tell me everything tonight and all this, but I'm still working hard to try to learn, and at this point I was hoping the flow chart would help me. It didn't.
Well, if I've got time, I'm not sure, Dr. McGraw, how to, guess I'm struggling with how to maybe express it differently. Like I said, you've got a board of 8 people on the EDOC board that basically, they meet most of the time monthly, and they decide what to do. Now, I help prepare financial statements. Obviously, in the past, Mr. Kaysen helped solicit the investors, helped raise the money, and those kind of things. So my position is involved with EDOC, but technically I don't have any. And again, like I said, I can't say, don't do this, don't do that, like I can at the chamber. Well, at least the board of directors, I can advise the board of directors, and both of them, have to approve it. I know Mr. Kaysen used to come to the meetings, and he would make recommendations to EDOC on what to do because he was involved in a lot of the things happening. But they are the ultimate authorities that made the decisions on anything's happening. Megasite. All those decisions were brought to them, but then they made the ultimate decision on what to do, on who to contract with, the PR firm, and all those kind of things. The EDOC board approved that. So my position is an ex officio. Maybe that's a better way to put it. I'm an ex officio member of EDOC. Does that help any?
Somewhat. And so who does EDOC answer to?
That board. Those 4, the county commission chairman, Mayor of Jefferson City, Mayor of Danridge, finance director, and then 4 citizens that are elected to the board. Right now, that's Mr. Jay Mosier, Mr. Max Fultz, Mr. Greg Williams, and I think we don't have another. We did have. I'm sorry, we do have Rosemary Dixon with First Tennessee Bank. Now, I know some of I was on the board, as you know, as your finance director, or at least for the last 4 years. as who are these people. We wanted to have particularly one, we wanted to have the CEO or the director of Appalachian Electric. That's your largest utility. We wanted him on the board in particular because he would have a lot of, in any industrial development, he would be a big player in that game. So that made sense. Well, we wanted a person from our largest manufacturer or one of our larger manufacturers. That's Max Fultz. You know, that made sense. Mr. Moser was a key investor. He runs a very successful and large company in the county. We wanted to have, and we did have for a long time, a member of Carson Human on there. We did have, names are leaving me right now, but we had a representative, Carson Human, on there. Carson Human is an investor in there. And so we were trying to get those people on the board because we felt like that, again, they were putting a lot of skin in the game, but they would represent a very important aspect of the county when any decision came about, particularly an industry coming in. So that was how we talked about and how we came to those people.
Mr. Turner, then Mr. Bob.
Darrell, so basically based on what you just said, really there should be a line directly from the Chamber Board of Directors to EDOC in a down arrow fashion. If you're saying that EDOC reports to the Chamber Board, because that's what you said, that it reports to the Chamber. So really, to correct your flow chart, you just have an arrow straight down to EDOC, right?
No, no.
Be subordinate.
No, Russell. No, I don't. The EDOC board doesn't report to the board of directors of the chamber.
Who did you
Not
say?
directly. That comes through me. I report back to the chamber on what's...
I must have misunderstood you. I thought you said when John asked that who does it report to, I thought I heard you say to the board, but I might have misunderstood.
No, just remember, they're an entity by themselves.
So they don't report
No,
to anyone?
not back to the board of directors of the chamber, no. And neither does the board of directors of the chamber oversee their board. And that's me. I'm kind of the liaison between the ex officio.
So nobody's overseeing anybody.
Do what?
So nobody's overseeing anybody. Nobody's reporting a top-down.
Well, no, EDOC themselves, those 8 people, are accountable for what goes on with EDOC. Okay, the 15 members of the chamber board oversee whatever chamber activities they are. And I work between both of them, keeping both of them informed of what's going on in each organization. Because they still have to work hand in hand to a certain extent.
Mr. Bob Bailey.
Well, just say how.
I'm sorry, Mr. Turner.
I guess I'm clear as mud on that as well as John down there. I like a top down. I like to see hierarchy.
It looks like this.
Yeah, it is kind of circular. I see how contracted services go this way and that way to the chamber and this way to EDOC, but then it dotted line to you.
And see, and that's the board, the chamber board's connection to EDOC is they actually have a written contract services of what does EDOC do for the chamber. In other words, they're really contracting with them. So I guess the board of directors could cancel that contract and not have one with EDOC, but see, that services is for EDOC then to reimburse the chamber board for some expenses that's related to economic development in the whole county.
I understand our questions. I think it's the same as John. We're just trying to understand the hierarchy.
I understand.
And who reports to who and who's responsible to who. Because that's not clear on there. So that's all I have.
Well, Dr. McGraw had already told me the next day that he didn't think this was clear, so we'll work on that too. As we meet with both boards, I'll have them to review this again, tell them your all's concerns, and see if there is some way, maybe they've got some better ideas for us to do it differently.
Mr. Baylor.
Director of Tourism and Director of Economic Development. You've got them listed here is coming under you. And am I correct in assuming, since they're getting paid by EDOC, the EDOC's putting them under you because they don't have anybody to do day-to-day operations and monitor what they do.
Well, that's probably a good point, Bob, or not probably, it is. Those should be, those lines probably should be going directly to the EDOC Board of Directors. We should move those two over, and they're responsible to EDOC.
But I do understand, I've been told that they do answer to you. Because because EDOC doesn't have an office, they doesn't have day-to-day operations for them to come to and ask questions or whatever.
That's correct. For instance, I've told Garrett and I've told Adele, I want to be involved in meetings that they have. Like we've met with an industrial prospect. Garrett lined that up. He lined up the TVA representative to be there. He lined up the State Department of Economic Development to be there. He lined up a Norfolk Southern representative to be there. He lined all that up, but then he notified, and I went to the meeting with him. During that meeting, the industrial prospect, once he got around all the technical stuff, then he looks at me and he said, well, Mr. Director of the Chamber, he said, tell me why I'd want to live in Jefferson City. Tell me about Jefferson City. And guess what he said? And then he repeated, he said, well, let me ask you this. He said, the first question, he said, how's your education system? First question he asked me. When I told him, well, I said, guess what? We've just finished a $53 million renovation of our buildings. And so we're working on improving our education system. And then I told him about the 10 Promise program. Very impressed with that. But anyway, as you can see, that's the interaction that I have with them. I'm going to meet with them on any industrial prospect. With Adele, I'm involved in her tourism, the bass tournaments, those kind of things. I want to be informed and working with them because I see that as part of the chamber activities too. Does that make any sense? But I still.
You stated there a minute ago, if I understood you right, that there used to be somebody from Carson Newman on the board.
We would like to have, yes.
Well, don't you have a lady now that's chairman of the county Chamber of Commerce, or would EDOC want?
Well, yeah, Dr. Mallard was on the board of directors for the chamber. She just rotated off.
Just in the last few days?
Just this year she rotated off. So we're trying to find somebody else from the college to serve again.
Mr. Dockery.
Darrell, let me take a strike at this as well. Correct me if I say something wrong, but would it be accurate to say that EDOC is its own separate entity with a board of directors, and they receive money, and Mr. Potts gave us all of the financial information. They receive hotel, motel tax money, we have these numbers, and they receive private investments.
Correct.
The chamber is a separate entity with a board of directors, and they receive hotel and motel tax money. No.
Well, it depends on how you look at that. I mean, we get like in the budget this year, the chambers, the EDOC's getting $180,000. The chamber's getting $155,000. The hotel motel tax you collected was probably around $220,000 or so. Now you could say, well, we gave you $155,000, and part of that, the difference between $180,000 and whatever was collected, was the difference. And I think I said before, I'm estimating that you gave about $100,000 to the chamber that would be taxpayer dollars, not counting hotel motel
and
taxes.
then in addition to that, the chamber receives revenue from membership fees.
That's our only other revenue is membership fees, and of course we do get some grant money. We apply for grants.
So really the thing that does, as you said earlier and someone else, tie the two together is this contracted services. So EDOC takes their funding and contracts with the chamber board to get some of these services that you provide. Now, should they not be happy with those services, they could probably do whatever else with their funding, correct?
Correct. And
then the chamber uses, I guess, a portion of this money to provide some of these services as well.
Correct. For instance, in tomorrow's meeting of the chamber board members, this is the chamber meeting tomorrow, in our budget that I prepared, we're showing X number of dollars as being reimbursed to the chamber from EDOC for services that the chamber does for them, which I think kind of covers, it's not directly, some of my involvement with it. The chamber board tomorrow has to approve that budget that I'm submitting. In February, I'll prepare an EDOC budget along with Garrett and Adele on what your needs. I put that together, present it to the board at EDOC, and they approve it. So again, they're approving everything. Anything that is done, any contracts signed, those kind of things has to be approved by both boards. I'm not at liberty to go sign a contract or anything like that without their approval.
Anyone else? Question or comment? Mr. Helton, I believe you're finished.
Thank you very much.
Next on your list, you have the director of the Boys and Girls Club, Jessica Page. She was here last meeting, and I don't believe she's with us this evening. Question or comment? Moving right along, on the nursing home, you've done heard from Roger Myatt because he needed to leave. You have financial statements with the independent auditor's report, June 30th, 2014 and 13 as a handout. Moving right along to reports of committees, boards, and commissions. Budget Committee, we'll be hearing from you under new business. Conservation Board, Mr. Robert Tucker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed in the work session, IDB wants to give this piece of land to the Conservation Board. We want to use it for conservation, preservation, recreation, and we would like the Commission to accept that piece of land. There will be some small amount of fees. I think $3,000 should cover that as far as doing the survey, any plat drawings, and mapping anything out that needs to be done. And we would like to, our recommendation is to send that to the Budget Committee for approval of those funds. But I would like to bring before you for a vote to accept that piece of land from IDB to be under the control or development of the Conservation Board.
Mr. Tucker, would you like to handle that right now?
Please.
Does that come from that committee as a motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Is there a second? Second, Mr. John McGrath. Yeah, well, that's right. Does anyone oppose? Mr. Bob Baylor.
I've got a question. Can we pass something to approve something that we have to designate where the money's coming from?
Technically, no.
Wait. Mr. Chairman, do you want me to answer that? Was that a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
The situation, what we're doing is, right now, this is under the control of the IDB. What we're asking to do is accept it to the county to accept the land. In the transfer of that land, there will be some small fees as far as recording a deed, maybe $25, $50, but there's also going to be some mapping just to make sure those property lines and pinpoints are where they are supposed to be, so that there will be some cost. And so that cost, that's what I'm recommending to go to Budget Committee to see where those funds will come from.
Mr. Seal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has the Conservation Board explored any environmental hazards or problems with that property just to make sure that our county is not exposed to liability on that property?
We've had communication with IDB and asked them those type of questions, and there's nothing to their understanding. And by the way, IDB is a county organization. I mean, it's kind of, if we were talking about a budget, it'd be a line item transfer. We're moving it from one body of the county to another body of the county.
Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor. Recommendation from the committee. Does anyone oppose? Mr. Gall, are you about to oppose?
No, I have one more question.
Sir, go ahead.
Well, the health department sits on this piece of property, is that correct?
Yes, and we talked about that will actually come out and it'll be a separate plot. Right now, the piece of land is the way it's gone out. With the new survey, which is one of the expenses, the health department will come out, but they need to move it so that you've got that road frontage there.
So the IDB owns the property that the health department sits on?
That's the way I understand it. They're in control of this parcel of land, and within that parcel of land, that's within those confines.
Anyone else, question or comment? Mr. Baylor.
I don't think the health department sits on the land. What's that, crap, I can't think of what to call it. They just built it here about a year and a half ago.
No, it's over to the right.
But this property, that was part of the property, and they just wanted that front part. And then this back part is what they're talking about wanting now, in which they didn't need. We tried to give it to them, or I said I wasn't on the board, but the ID board tried to give it to them, the whole thing, and they wouldn't accept it. They just wanted the front part. So I don't know if it's on actually on the health department's property or not.
Anyone else? Make it a quickie.
I'm not opposed to accepting the land, but I do agree that we're accepting and assuming that we're going to approve the expenditure. And the fact that we're going to accept a piece of property so there's now the conservation board going to be the landlord of the health department? Seems to me like
cut it off anyway, stuff.
But who's going to pay for that cutting off? That's the expenditures that need to be approved. We're going to accept this to the conservation board before we have. I mean, I just don't feel like we've got all of our ducks in a row just yet.
Mr. Turner.
I was just thinking it might be appropriate to refer this to the budget committee in the first place and allow them to work it out, since it's got to be, those funds need to be discussed anyway. And that's what I think Mr. Tucker was saying, that it was going to go there subsequent to our vote here. So I would move to refer it to the budget committee in total and let the budget committee determine the costs associated, and also the question about the diagram, because it's the question about whether the current health department sits on the same property that we're accepting or not.
So you're making a motion to refer it to budget?
That's correct.
Is there a second? Mr. Randy Baxley made a second.
On the floor already.
Question or discussion? Mr. John McGraw.
Chairman Tucker, would this in any way slow up? I mean, you guys are trying to develop this as a recreational piece of property. If this goes to budget, which is 2 months from now, is that going to significantly hinder y'all's activity in getting this done? Is that going to have to go there anyway?
I appreciate what you're saying, and what it will do, it'll make it move at the speed of government, which is just slower than a snail. So, you know, I'm fine with it going to budget committee. The money allocated for the survey will have to go to budget committee. That was part of our recommendation, was to move that there. This land is already under the control of Jefferson County. Any liabilities of that land are already the liabilities of Jefferson County. We're just asking to move, for you all to accept the move of transfer of control from one county entity to another county entity. And then we would like to, that new county entity, Conservation Board, would like to get this plat worked out correctly with a new survey that gives the health department their own parcel that does not include the rest of that 17 acres.
Mr. Tucker, would you like to go ahead and vote on the original motion to see the wishes of this commission, and then if they do wish to proceed? I'm just merely asking a question. Hang on.
That's a point of order, though. You're incorrect. A referral takes precedence.
I'm just asking the man a question.
All right.
That's all I'm doing.
Either way is fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you stand. Trying to expedite government here if we can at all. We will vote on the motion by Mr. Turner and seconded by Mr. Randy Baxley to send it to Budget Committee. All in favor of sending it to Budget Committee signify by raising your right hand. Nays? It's what? 12 to 5, it goes to Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For your information, you have the alpha chart. Any question or comment? You have your fire departments, Bainbury, Chestnut Hill, and Danridge, activity reports in your handouts. If no question or comment, we'll move right along to unfinished business. There is none. New business. Mr. John Neal Scarlett, Budget Committee. You have the floor.
Budget Committee met last Monday. You have a new packet Miss Peggy printed off. You should have corrected some things that we had to look about, but you should have in your packet the corrected amendments. First amendment, fund balance, comes out of fund balance. It was passed by the Budget Committee. It's for part-time personnel for security at the courthouse. It has a fund balance impact. Mr. Chairman, you will need to take a roll call vote. $17,459. So moved from the committee.
Is there a question or comment? Mr. Tucker.
I'm definitely for safety of all of our public buildings, and I'm definitely against growing government. I think our government's too big now. I think it's bloated now, and every time we add another position, another department, another employee, government grows again. The more government, the more tax. The more tax, the less freedom of the citizens. The more enslaved they become to this government. I know the sheriff does a fantastic job of protecting our county, and I appreciate Sheriff McCoy for all of your efforts. I know that the protection of this county facility, the courthouse, has been under his protection since I've been on county commission, and I presume since Jefferson County was established that the protection of the courthouse has been under the power of the sheriff. I think he's done a good job of securing it and protecting it, and his budget all of these years that I've been on commission has handled the protection of this building. There was no increase in the county didn't grow any. There's nothing else that we're trying to protect that we weren't already protecting, so I oppose increasing the taxpayer's liability to protect what it's already been protecting with less money. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mr. Clerk, call the roll. If you approve of this, vote yes. If not, vote no.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
No.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
No.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
No.
Randy Bales.
No.
John Neal Scarlett.
No.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
No.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Barbara Sheets.
Yes.
$14 to 6. Amendment passes. Mr. Scarlett.
Next amendment is General Fund 101, Amendment 6. The county register of deeds has officially turned his, if there's any questions, Mr. Potts can address this, has turned his payroll and everything over. It was with the blessing of the county register of deeds that this comes on there. The other ones are moving insurance recovery, moving small line items.
Question or comment?
So move it, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone oppose? So moved.
Next amendment is fund balance adjustments, Hospital Fund 128. This is money that is coming out at the present for the building program by stipulation of resolution that we would pay on the high school renovation. It does impact a fund. You will need to take a voice roll call vote. So
Thank you, Mr. Scarlett. It comes a recommendation. So moved.
Yep.
Question or comment? Ms. Kofaker.
I'm sorry I missed the work session. But is this the money that was set aside originally to be used for the schools that are associated with the bond?
Yes, ma'am. It was. It was a 2.4 or 2.8 million that was set aside originally for cash of the last $4 million that the county would owe the school system on the renovation.
Anyone else? We'll call the roll. If you're for this amendment, vote yes. If not, vote no.
Katie Huffaker.
No.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
No.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
No.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Barbara Sheets.
Yes.
Amendment passes 17-3. Mr. Scarlett.
Next one is Hospital Fund 128, Amendment 2. It is a reimbursement for the facility, or the utilities from the time Dr. Milligan left until the building was sold. This is our part. Jefferson City also has half of this. $953.72. So moved.
Question or comment? Does anyone oppose? So moved.
Next one is Highway Department Fund 131. Move money from a reserve account, liquid asphalt. Passed as a recommendation from committee. So moved, Mr. Chairman. You probably should take a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Question or comment? If not, if you approve, vote yes. If you don't, vote no. Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Barbara Sheets.
Yes.
Amendment passes. Moving on, Mr. Chairman.
Next one is General Purpose Fund 141, Jefferson County School, Budget Amendment 6. These are moving line items. Was passed by the Budget Committee, so move it, Mr. Chairman.
This does not affect fund balance,
Does
correct, sir?
not affect fund balance.
Question or comment? Anyone opposed? So moved.
Jefferson County Schools, General Purpose 141, Budget Amendment Number 7, was half of receipt of a gift of $44,000 from American Dairy Association grant, moving other supplies. Does not affect fund balance. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Question or comment? Does anyone oppose? So moved.
Jefferson County Schools, Federal Purpose 142, Budget Amendment 6, Title I and Race to the Top grant. Has nothing to do with us. It's federal money. So move it, Mr. Chairman.
Question or comment? Anyone oppose? So moved.
Jefferson County Schools, Federal Purpose 142, Budget Amendment Number 7. Same way, federal money we can't do anything about it, so move, Mr. Chairman.
Question or comment? Anyone opposed? So moved.
Jefferson County Schools, Food Service Fund 143, Budget Amendment Number 2. The rest of the grant from American Dairy Association, $22,000. So move it, Mr. Chairman.
Question or comment? Anyone opposed? So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now moving right along to C. Mr. Tucker, Conservation Board, I believe we've got your business handled, correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is the Building Oversight Committee for Building 8. We will accept nominations at this time. Mr. Steve Douglas.
I have 3 nominations for that. I have Mr. David Gaunt, David Seal, and Jenny Carmichael.
Anyone else? Mr. Turner.
I think someone should be on there from the school system. I agree.
My understanding is there's supposed to be 5 people and there'll be 2 from the school board. They have to pick their 2.
So we're going to allow them, okay?
Yes.
All right.
That's the original motion is they pick their 2.
Okay.
My understanding is they have like 10 days to choose, I do believe. Was there a number put to that?
I don't think there was, Mr. Chairman, but when you get done this, I'd offer that motion that to expedite the thing, they need to have it done within 10 days.
Anyone else?
Do I need to amend that?
Nomination cease.
Never mind.
Mr. Randy Baxter.
Make a motion, nomination cease.
We have a motion, nomination ceased. I have a second. Ms. Rita Music seconded. Does anyone oppose? If not, so moved.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer the motion to the school system within 10 days notify you of their 2 nominees, so to expedite this process.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. John McGraw. Question or comment?
You have a meeting Thursday?
Does anyone oppose? If not, so moved. Moving right along to Mr. Langdon Potts, Building 8.
Thank you. As you know, we're faced with a decision on how to finance the completion of Jefferson County renovation and Building 8. My recommendation is that we issue a bond not to exceed $7.8 million. And the way I get to that 7.8 is to fund $5 million that we originally in 2012 were going to take from fund balances. That was 2.8 from the hospital, 1.19 from debt service, and $1,010,000 from the school fund. Those funds are reaching, in my opinion, critical lows in those cases, and that's why I think we should issue a bond for those instead of using our cash. The second part of this is Building 8 for $2.7 million, and that's a little different than the resolution that was passed in December that we talked about in the work session. Together, those two would be $7.8 million, including the fees for those bonds. Do we want to stop there, or you want me to go to the next, how we want to do the auction on that, Chairman?
Go ahead.
Okay. And the second part of my recommendation is that we use option 2. There's 2 options laid out that you have in the sheets that I handed out. The option 1 is called level debt. That is a bond through 2045. 3.61 would be our effective interest rate. We would pay a total of $13.5 million over the life. And by the way, this example is using $8 million. That's just the number we had. So if we do 7.8, it would be a little bit less. But everything I'm telling you is still relative. The second option is a balloon option. It's much shorter time period than the first option I gave. This would expire in 2023. And they're not, neither proposal is a no principal payment for the first few years. There's a little misconception of that. It's structured more like you would a mortgage for a house. Your first few periods of first few years of your mortgage, you're paying more interest than you are in principal as you start getting that paid down. Option 2 has a little less principal than option 1. But over these 2 options here, we save about $1.4 million by going with the balloon option. Just to note, 74% of our current debt was put on in the last 5 years. If we had put these 2 bonds that deal with Jefferson County High School in with our original bonds, we would have ended up with something very similar to what I'm proposing here in terms of your payment over this time period. We would have spread it over this longer time frame.
At this time, is there a question or comment from Mr. Potts? Mr. Tim,
which option do you favor on that?
I'm suggesting number 2, which is a shorter time frame and saves $1.2 million in interest versus option 1.
Anyone else? Ms. Huffaker.
I may have confused myself. With the vote from the hospital that we just voted on, would that come off this number?
No, this would replace that. Instead of doing what we did, this would replenish those funds. We would not use those funds as we originally said in 2012, I think it was.
But the hospital reserve money that we just voted on.
Yes. Okay. Let me try to say it a different way. The $5 million that I talked about first, that is to, instead of using the 2.8 for the hospital and the 1.19 for debt service and the $1,010,000 out of the school system, this would replace that. We wouldn't use our fund, we wouldn't use our cash in those 3 funds. Is that more clear?
Well, I thought we just voted to use it.
We did just vote to use that because we've used our $20 million bond, and now that's all we have left.
Mr. David Goff.
I was just going to say, they're already spending that money, so we had to make provision for the expenditure of that money. That's what the hospital lease vote was about.
Okay.
Because this vote had not taken place yet.
Okay.
Anyone else?
The 3,
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 3 funds, there was $2.8 million out of the hospital fund, there's $1.1 million out of the school fund, and then there was $1 million out of our general fund, is that?
Debt service.
Debt service, okay.
Yeah.
And then the resolution 2014-34 allows us to use this money to replenish those funds that we've already expended from, or the monies that we've expended from other funds in this. Is that accurate?
That's my understanding, sir.
So we take the $5 million and we replenish the 1.4 that we're using out of the hospital fund. And now, one thing that I do want to ask about is the school fund balance, the 1.1 that they were putting skin in the game. Does this $5 million do away with that? So that they're not putting that 1.1 in?
That's correct.
How did
just like the rest of these, Commissioner, we're reversing our decision on cash on all 3 of these. If we use my number of $5 million.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else? Mr. Turner.
I just like, because I asked you to last week, please tell us what you thought we should do. If we should take the $1,010,000 from the school fund balance. Maybe just to explain, what's your rationale for not using the cash, and just to make it clear for the public, and why specifically you think that we shouldn't use the $1,010,000 from the school fund balance.
Okay. Well, I can go through each one. The debt service has been talked about before, and I don't have the exact numbers here, but this coming year alone, we're going to pay out more. I didn't bring those numbers with me, but significantly more than we're bringing in the debt service fund. By the end of this coming year, we're going to be to our minimum balance that we can be regulated by the state. We have to have 50% of our upcoming year's debt service. So that'll put us awful close to that number. And then next year, our debt goes up another $800,000 or so. The debt payment, service payment, goes up that much more. So that's the issue on the debt service. The hospital, my opinion there is, this is our savings account for whatever's coming up, whether it's industrial development or emergency or something going on, and that's really the money that we've got left to do something. I don't know what something is, but something unforeseen there. The school system, they have to have a 3% reserve of their operating budget. And this puts them, basically, if we don't do this, they will be out of fund balance if we don't put this back here, unrestricted fund balance. If we don't let them keep that $1.10 million. I don't have the exact numbers here, but it puts them awful close to that.
Thank you.
Mr. Dockery.
I'm going to go back before your time.
Okay.
Maybe Dr. Evans or some others could have to answer this. Okay. Roughly 3 years ago, I think it was, the school board had a capital outlay note that was in the neighborhood of $1 million, maybe a little over $1 million. And I remember at a school board meeting, there was a lot of discussion, maybe at a couple of meetings, about using that money to expand Talbot Elementary to help with overcrowding at flight time. I actually thought there was a motion passed once to do that, but I'm not sure about that. But then a few months later at another meeting, Dr. Evans recommended that they not do that. So if the fund balance is that short, would that $1 million or whatever's on that capital outlay note be available, since it wasn't used at Talbot, to help out with the shortfall we have now?
Okay, I think I can answer that. Is that the one we just used the balance of?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the December meeting, when we paid for the design fees, actually that was in the school board meeting, we paid $128,000 of design fees out of that fund, which took it down to $2,000 or $3,000 is all that's left on that bond, on that fund.
So that $1 million's all gone?
That's gone. Sure.
Part of that, we spent $225,000 for the water line and forward for that. That was sort of a generic bond issue that could be used for several things. Architect fees were paid out of it. The project, water line was put.
Dr. Evans, I'll have to ask you to take the podium so other people can hear you. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry. Might be helping me remember, but I know we put the water line in to Mount Horeb, and it was $225,000 or $30,000. We had several projects where we paid architects' fees out of that, and and the road expansion, we had to pay for the road expansion out of that too.
I do remember.
Yes, sir. So we paid a lot of things out of that. It's been very helpful to us, and when that was done, it was a godsend to us later years. But you're right, we did have that, but it is gone essentially.
Well, now another one more question, and this is to try to get a better picture of the future financial outlook.
Yes, sir.
Is anyone, whether it be architectural firm, engineering firm, is anyone doing any work or planning of any kind about plans to expand White Pine?
We have looked at White Pine in terms of what we could do down there to improve the situation. And we have had to look, because we had to make a plan to move in a modular. We just moved in another modular classroom down there, and a very terrible modular, but we finally got it looking halfway decent. And we're also using a stage down there. So we have looked at what it will take eventually to get out of those modulars down there. I think there's 8 classrooms now. 8 classrooms that are modulars plus the stage, but we have not done anything officially as far as the board moving forward to do anything. We are looking at the problem we have there, because one day that'll have to be addressed. We have some 867 kids there.
Well, based on what you know so far, do you have any idea what that price tag is, and you might be coming back on?
No, sir, I really don't. The board has not taken that up. It has not been taken up, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Before you sit down, Dr. Ed, let me ask you something. If this money is appropriated, are you all guaranteeing we're going to finish that high school, everything over there, Building 8 included, on this amount of money?
Well, I'm not a prophet. I would say I sure hope we can. I would think so, and I'm very conscious of what y'all are going through. The board is very conscious of it, and we know that a lot's been spent on buildings. We do see the light at the end of the tunnel, except for what we have to do at White Pine, and we have addressed so many things. And Ms. Scarlett, I do feel good about if we're able to utilize this, but what Mr. Potts said that's so important to us is our fund balance, and we did buy in, and we did volunteer to do that to get the project done, so we're part of it. But it is going to be awfully hard to make a budget anyway, and there might be a need for some cushion for capital things that we have to come out of that $1.10 million, so that we can make a budget next year and the year after. It's the next 2 or 3 years' budgets, you know, is going to be very tough for us.
And then you said down at the Patriot Academy, you had a guarantee. You stood up and opened a piece of paper there. Said you had a guarantee from Rettenbach.
Had a guaranteed maximum price.
And that you had a guarantee that they'd have it done by the date that the insurance company.
I read from their statement that they had typed up that they would. Yes, sir.
My question to you is, what happens if they don't? Is there any penalty to them? Are they going to pay us the $255,000? Because when we issue this bond,
yes, sir,
then it's done.
I understand.
There is no $255,000 more.
Yes, sir.
Or is Rettenbach going to pay that money, or going to compensate if they don't fulfill their promise that they wrote on that paper to you?
Well, that was not a negotiated contract. I'd rather look at it this way, that we're going to make it and be done, and then we're going to win our lawsuit and get the money back.
So that's a no.
I can't guarantee you that we would get it back.
You said you had
we got a guarantee for a guaranteed maximum price.
Yeah, but you said you had, that Rettenbach guaranteed they'd have her done. They said they'd have it done.
When I say guarantee, it's in writing.
I'm asking you, what is normally a guarantee? Means there's some sort of retribution, some sort of compensation, something there. What is there that says, if we don't get it done, here's what we're prepared to do?
In contract law, it's not official offer and acceptance in contract law like you would have in a contract law. But it is a statement from them saying, when we were asking if we get able to get this thing going by the first week in January, will you get us done so that we will be done by July the 6th, because it collapsed on July the 7th 2 years ago. And the statement on the paper that we have from them in writing is they would have it done. That's what we have.
So there's nothing there that basically...
As far as a signed contract, notarized, no, sir, we don't have...
We've got their good word.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that works.
Any other questions, sir?
Mr. Galt.
If you want to use the term skin in the game, if we go this route and you all are not going to have skin in the game, do you have any other suggestions or options of how you can keep some skin in the game? Possibly some forfeiture of capital outlay money for the next couple of 3-4 years? Anything that you all are willing to give?
Well, certainly, I know y'all are faced with a lot of decisions, and I think the school board would be very cooperative. What I see from the county commission is the things that we will absolutely need. I know we're not going to afford any luxuries, and we don't have any now, but we will not be coming and asking for things that are not necessary in our budget. We know that's to no avail.
Anyone else, question or comment? Thank you, Dr. Evans.
Yes,
Mr. Potts, we got 5 minutes left on the tape.
I'm done unless there are more questions.
Let's take a short break to switch tapes, 10 minutes. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Mr. Scarlett, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on this bond. I'd like to move that we fund $4 million that we're supposed to, plus what we approved down at the Patriot Academy for Building 8 fully. If I can get a second, I'll speak to it.
Second. Mr. Rob Blevins? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
He's seconded.
Mr. Rob Blevins seconded the motion. I'll open it for discussion. Mr. Scarlett.
Although I understand that the thing will be close on the fund balance, Dr. Edmonds said the other day, and he spoke about his true words he spoke in here, he said that was the only way that they could get the deal done. And I was always taught when you make a deal, that's the way it is. I guess I agree with Mr. Tucker that slipped by down yonder, but I feel a little bit snookered on that 2.7 versus the 2.4, but I'm gonna man up. I said I'd support that for Building 8, and I'll support that full funding. But I think school system needs to man up, put that in too. They made a deal. That's what we told the people of the county. That's the way it needs to be.
Anyone else, question or comment? Mr. Turner.
Well, we just heard from our finance director that it would not be wise to take this $1,010,000 from the school's fund balance. New on the job, but coming to us in full faith and giving us his recommendation. And things do change, and things are different from 2 years ago when we approved this funding mechanism where $1,010,000 would come from the school system. Things have changed. Our fund balances are not the same. School systems under different circumstances. I believe that we need to follow the recommendation of our finance director, and I think we need to remove or eliminate the $1,010,000 from the funding and go straight in bond issue. That's all.
Anyone else, question or comment? Mr. David Gall.
So the total is 6,825?
Yes, sir. $4 million that we're supposed to, plus what we passed down at the Patriot Academy. We all sit there and passed it. We're all big folks. We need to honor our commitment, and they do too.
Anyone else, question or comment? You're allowed to close, Mr. Scarlett.
The other thing I'd like to add with that motion, if Mr. Blevins will allow it, I've thought about how to fund this thing quite a bit, at least the Building 8 part. I don't know that I've got any good answers for this hole we're in on the other. But the school system in the last 3 years has got 575, 525, and 562 in round numbers in capital outlay. That's county money that goes to the school system. And in this motion, and I have asked Mr. Potts, and he said he would check on it, the bond that we're issuing we can't pay immediately. And the bond was done by the prior commission that has us not paying anything but interest till 2037, we can't pay on yet. Is that right, Mr. Scott?
That's correct.
But there is some debt we can pay, and we can get rid of $2.7 million. I'd like to include in this motion that instead of capital money going to the schools for the next term until that's paid off, that money be earmarked by this commission as a source of funding at least for the Building 8 part. Now, a prior commission made a commitment to fund $4 million. And to give a little history on this thing, we had enough money in the debt service before the last two budgets. Before the last two budgets, the prior commission and the commission before, when I got on here, would be 5 years ago now. They had put enough tax money, and I think Miss Anne Marie Potts over where we had a discussion about moving money, and it was earmarked for the school debt, and it was there to pay for the construction, I believe. That money was there. And in the last 2 years, in the 2 budget cycles, the prior commission stole, whatever you want to call it, 13 cents out of that thing. Had that 13 cents be there, we would not be looking at the $2 million hole that Mr. Potts was talking about. That's where your $1.5 million is that you cannot balance this debt service on. And I hate that the new commissioners are going to be painted with the big broad brush on this thing. But at some point in time, we've got to fill all that. And I've heard that the pain of change, that you'll never change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. If we don't change what we're doing, it's a disaster. And if you want to know where the money is that come out of that debt service, you need to look at the 11 commissioners that voted for the last 2 budgets. It was 13 cents or 14 come out of there. That's where your $1.5 million is. But in the until this, at least the 2.7, we need to use that capital outlay money. It's county money. It's not within the school budget. It's not maintenance of effort. But that needs to be part of the motion. If you'll accept that, Mr. Blevins.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Scarlett, you're wanting to say that your motion is the $4 million plus the 2.6, almost 2.7 for Building 8, and you also want to say that the capital outlay money be to that for the duration till Building 8 is paid?
Till a like kind amount of Building 8 is paid.
Mr. Bob Baylor, question or comment?
Yeah, our finance director, when you give what you thought we ought to do, is that because they don't have the money? The schools, do they have the money?
They do have the money. I'm just saying that takes them awful close. Well, without this $1 million, they have no excess in their fund.
But they do have the required number that the state says they have.
They'll be right at the required number. We haven't calculated that number, but it's going to be close.
So if they need anything else, they'll have to come back for it.
Of any significance, yes.
Right.
Anyone else, question or comment?
I just want to clarify, it's the 2.825.
2.825.
That we approved.
Whatever Mr. Potts says that we need for Building 8. We voted whatever that number is. That we add $4 million plus whatever that number is.
Okay.
So if it's $1,010,000 less than 7.8. $1,010,000 less than 7.8.
Yes. Okay. Question or comment? Anyone else?
Call for the question.
Can I make another comment?
Sure.
So just to make sure we're clear on the Building 8, 2.7 replaces the 2.8 the change resolution and the 145 that was approved at the prior meeting.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I'm saying.
That's what my motion does.
Question's been called. I'm sorry, Mr. Tabor. Mr. Clerk, call the roll. If you approve of this motion, Mr. Tabor.
I was opposed to that, Mr. Chairman.
You was opposed to the call of the question? Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Now can I speak?
Yes.
No, you'll have to vote.
No, you got to vote. You got to vote. I'm sorry. You got to vote. Everyone in favor of the call of the question, signify by raising your right hand.
No, I'm up.
No.
Did you vote?
Yeah. I got 9 that time.
I think everybody's put.
They was 10 the first time. Everybody hold their hand up high. It was 11 that time. The call to the question has passed. Now we vote. The motion is $4 million plus the 2.825, and the capital outlay money will go towards Building 8 until Building 8 is paid for. Is that correct, Mr. Scarlett?
It is.
It's 2.7 for Building 8.
2.7.
Yes, that's after.
That's why I was looking at you when they said the 2.825. I thought it was 2.7 a while ago.
6.7.
It would be.
Question has been called.
It would be $1,010,000 less than Mr. Potts' recommendation. That's an easy way to fix it. $6,990,000.
There you go.
Mr. Clerk?
Can we have the motion?
No, that can't be right. The motion is to fund the $4 million plus the 2.7 for Building 8, and that the capital outlay that normally goes out to the school be put to the debt of Building 8 until it's paid for. If you are for this motion, answer yes. If you're not, answer no. Mr. Clerk.
Katie Huffaker?
No.
Todd Kesterson?
Yes.
Steve Douglas?
Yes.
David Galt?
Yes.
Randy Baxley?
Yes.
Rita Music?
No.
Donnie Tabor?
No.
John McGraw?
Yes.
Russell Turner?
No.
Tim Seals?
Yes.
Sammy Solomon?
No.
Robert Blevins?
Yes.
Randy Bales?
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett?
Yes.
Terry Dockery?
Yes.
Robert Tucker?
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael?
Yes.
David Seal?
Yes.
Bob Beeler?
No.
Barbara Sheets?
No.
Votes 13-7. The motion does pass.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
I think Mr. Gibson will need to.
Mr. Gibson.
I would respectfully suggest that you basically funded the project. Did you mean to adopt the resolutions for those amounts?
I would move that.
So you should, there are 2 resolutions that need to be adopted to fund the project you just voted on for $6,790,000, correct?
That's what I.
And that is option 2.
That is option 2. So you had multiple resolutions in your packet last time. I would move, or I would suggest one of you move to adopt an initial resolution, which you had multiple resolutions for an amount. We would amend the resolution on the floor to $6,790,000. Because you had too many.
$6,990,000. It's $1,010,000 left. Is that right? Is that right?
I've got 7.
Yeah, 790.
Yes,
We were $7,800,000, right?
How are you?
Was your recommendation? By $1,010,000, $6,790,000.
$6,790,000. So it's going down.
if someone would move to adopt an initial resolution with the amount being amended, or the amount in the resolution being $6,790,000.
What's the number of that resolution, Mr. David Gott?
I move.
We have a motion on the floor and a second by Mr. Tim Seals. Is there any discussion? You ready to vote? What's the number of the resolution? Do you have it?
I don't have it. Nobody's got it. I have it.
They're not numbered.
Is there a title for the resolution so we can put it in the minutes?
That would be, one of them would be initial resolution.
Initial?
Initial resolution would be the first one.
First initial.
If you give me a number, I'll... You got a resolution number? You want to give it?
How are you going to do that? I believe we can number it later.
That'd be fine.
You have before you the initial resolution. Is there any question or comment to this resolution? If you are for this resolution, signify by saying yes. If not, signify by saying no.
You need to do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote. That's what we're doing.
Yes, you are.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxley. Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
No.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Barbara Sheets.
Yes.
19-1. The initial resolution passes.
Second resolution would be a detailed resolution. There were two of those in your packet. We will amend the one that says $2,825,000 to $6,790,000. It also has balloon and deadness out there, which would be option 2 on the cover. If that was what you'd like to do, then I would make that recommendation.
We'll call that option 2.
So
Mr.
moved.
Tucker.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Turner. Question or comment? Mr. Clerk, we'll call the roll.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxter.
Yes.
Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
No.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Barbara Sheets.
Yes.
19-1, it passes.
That's all I need.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving right along, we're down to E. Commissioner Russell Turner, the floor is yours, sir.
Let me see where I am. Based on the decision we made, shouldn't we revisit the previous resolution that broke out those the funding that was in resolution 2012-19? Is our counselor still here? Based on the decisions we made, we could allow those just to supersede something we already had approved, or would it be better just to go back and strike the previous resolution that stated where the funding was coming from, or change it?
As a housekeeping measure, that's probably a good idea, since these resolutions are going to completely replace that prior past resolution. Probably a good idea to just go ahead and rescind it. Is that your question?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the best way? So we would, I guess I would move that we would strike. It doesn't matter to me which way we do this. I just want to make it clear for housekeeping. Just to clean up Resolution 2012-19 by striking Section 2.
Mr. Turner, would you like to do both of yours at the same time?
And the other one, well, I think we ought to vote on them separately.
Well, we can do it either way.
It's just to make it clean. If I could get a second on that, that's all I'm trying to do. Is just
do we have a second? Mr. David Seal, you seconded.
Have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Question. Wait a minute. We need a second first.
Second.
Mr. Rob Levin seconded. Now, David Seals, you can give your question.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Turner, which item is it in Resolution 19?
In 2012-19, it's in Section 2.
I'm not sure I understand the function of the motion you made concerning Section 2 there. What would be the effect of it?
Based on the decision, Mr. Scarlett's motion and the funding that he's proposed, it's different. This is the way we had proposed 2 years ago. And the way we had written it was $2 million from hospital fund, $1,010,000 from school, $1,190,000 from debt service. We did, the way you stated it in your motion, you didn't follow this same.
All we would need to do, looks to me like Mr. Turner, is strike the $2,008,000 and the $1.19 million.
Okay, that's fine.
To be, if you're just housekeeping.
Just to clean it up.
We don't need to strike a whole section. I mean, it would appear, as far as what my motion does, it does not relieve the school of obligation of $1,010,000.
Okay. So that we would just strike out the 2.8 and the 1.10. So it would read, the county hereby authorizes the use of not to exceed $1,010,000 from general purpose school fund. Would that be all right? All right.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Goff.
If we do that, then this original motion, this resolution, 2012-19, is short. And if you're looking back 20 years from now, looking back on this, how would you know to reference back to the 2015, whatever resolution that we just passed tonight would be? If you just strike that funding out of there, how are you going to know? Are we getting into a...
Could be. I don't think it's necessary. You know what I mean? If I was trying to think of what was going to be inconsistent with those earlier, I don't think this is necessary. But as a housekeeping measure, if you want to get it into your minutes, that's fine. The action's been taken tonight's going to supersede those portions of that resolution anyhow. Although it wasn't specifically in these resolutions passed tonight, it's really not absolutely necessary.
Mr. Tucker.
Good. And I'll leave this up to Commissioner Turner. It's his motion, but would it make sense to amend it to say county hereby authorizes the use not to exceed $1.01 million from general purpose school fund and 2.8 and 1.190 from funding of resolution 2000 whatever 2015 XX being the resolution we passed tonight. So in this housekeeping measure, this resolution, that amended section 2 would say reference what we passed tonight, and that's where the other funding comes from. Then it wouldn't be short, and it would have it coming from the right areas.
So we'd be referencing a future resolution.
Cross-reference?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what you're looking for anyway.
Right, just to clean it up, I don't care, but that's fine.
I would just offer that to you.
That's fine. So we would include whatever the resolution number is we're using for tonight, which we don't know yet.
Which we don't know yet.
Including 2.8 million and 1.19.
Let's just try it this way. Does anyone oppose striking this from the original minutes?
You can't strike it from original minutes.
I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
I do. I do, because I think Commissioner Gott's right. I think then anybody that reads that in the record sees that funding's short and they have no idea where the funding came from.
I agree. I think the minutes need to be changed as well. I think that's what I had.
Just the resolution.
Say, you might consider a motion to ask the clerk to make a notation on the earlier resolution, it's amended by resolution number, whatever this resolution's assigned.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be noted in this.
You good with that?
I'm good with that. All right. That's fine. Just want to clean it up, that's all. Just
All right.
leave it out there.
That's official records, right.
So she can write that in, she can...
Is everybody clear with that?
Amending the original 2012-19.
Then you got your original 2012-19.
Notation that was amended by 2015.
Right.
I don't care how to do it, so to do it.
Okay, get all that wrote down right there, and then we'll read it all. I think you got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now just read back what you got there. Make sure we're right.
Yes.
If it satisfies Commissioner Turner, we'll make the motion to notate in the 2012-19 resolution in the official county minutes that this resolution was amended by tonight's resolution, 2015. We'll just add that to the original minutes rather than striking anything from official record.
Okay, so our minutes tonight.
And it will be cross-referenced in the 2012-19 minutes.
That's fine. All right.
Does anyone oppose? If not, so moved.
The other one was to clean up, since we voted in November to authorize an additional $145,000 in bond issuance that we did not use originally, just to rescind that motion. And since Director said that
We have a motion on the floor to rescind for 145. Is there a second? Mr. Todd Kester seconded the motion. Does anyone oppose? So moved.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
Point of information or clarity, and maybe I should ask parliamentarian, since we're rescinding a motion for $145,000, should we do a roll call vote?
You'll need to do a roll call vote.
We can do that, not a problem. Mr. Clerk, call the roll on the 145.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
David Galt.
Yes.
Randy Baxter. Rita Music.
Yes.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Robert Tucker.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
David Seal.
Yes.
Bob Beeler.
Yes.
Barbara Sheik.
Yes.
20-0, it passes. Moving along to G, have Commissioner David, wait a minute, I'm sorry.
If it's all right with everyone, we should also put in the minutes the way we did with the other resolution that we flowing doing there. Current minutes, clearly that we were doing rescinding that. That's okay with everybody.
That was rescinded.
Okay, we're moving right along to Commissioner David Seal, Commissioner Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County Commission Secretary Peggy Mitchell is a dedicated and kind employee of this County Commission, and I've included a motion or a draft motion in your packets to increase her salary from the 28 hours that she's currently paid to full-time 40 hours employment. The reason I use the word kind, she has worked in excess of that 28 hours. If we need packets put together, if we need her to attend meetings, if we need anything at all, she's always there. And it's my belief that she needs to be increased to a 40-hour work week. And the motion that I will make is less the sentence concerning health insurance. She's spoken several times on this and will decline health insurance. And the finance office has calculated her salary based on zero health insurance cost, which gives us a net increase of $12,414.85. In other words, to move her from 28 to 40 hours. So I'll make the motion is hereby made to upgrade the employment status of the County Commission Secretary from part-time to full-time. Full-time is defined as 40 hours per week, including a 30-minute paid lunch break. Office hours 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., consistent with courthouse hours. The Chair of County Commission having authority to adjust said hours with the 40-hour work week to facilitate attendance at meetings, preparation of documents, and other schedule changes as deemed necessary. The net cost of this action has been stated by the Finance Office to be in the amount of $12,414.85. Cost to be paid from fund balance.
We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded by Mr. Russell Turner, Mr. John McGraw. Question or comment?
I was going to second.
Mr. Todd Kesterson.
I've got a question about whose responsibility is it to prepare the minutes and who is preparing the minutes?
The minutes are recorded and prepared by the county clerk's office.
So Peggy's not doing anything with the minutes?
Not of your main meetings. All your subcommittee meetings, she does the minutes for all of them. Has to register them at the comptroller's office. We have 7 to 10 days to register that after every meeting. If any of your committees does anything like that, the minutes has to be turned in and registered with the state of Tennessee. Clerk's office does our main meetings. Question or comment? Ms. Barbara Sheets.
I can't see that we need a full-time secretary when she only works. We only have 2 meetings a month, plus some months we don't have meetings.
Anyone else? Mr. Baxter.
Off with the question.
Question has been called.
I object to that. I've got a couple questions that would help me decide one way or the next on this motion that I would just like to have.
Question has been called. We'll vote on the objection to the question. All in favor of the objection to the question, signify by raising your right hand.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
All in favor of what?
Objection to the call of the question.
He called to the question, you objected, so we have to vote on the objection.
Okay.
Everyone in favor of the objection, signify by raising your right hand. The call to the question stands. We're back to the original motion. The question has been called. Mr. Clerk, call the roll. If you are in favor, the full-time secretary will signify by saying yes. If not, signify by saying no.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
No.
Steve Douglas.
No.
David Galt.
No.
Randy Baxley.
No.
Rita Music.
No.
Donnie Tabor.
Yes.
John McGraw.
Yes.
Russell Turner.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Sammy Solomon.
No.
Robert Blevins,
Yes.
Randy Bales,
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett,
Yes.
Terry Dockery,
Yes.
Robert Tucker,
No.
Jimmy Carmichael,
Yes.
David Seal,
Yes.
Bob Beeler,
No.
Barbara Sheets.
No.
The vote was 11 yes to 9 no. This motion passed. Mr. Goff.
Is there any way of taking that from an hourly to a salary position at this point?
I think actually the expectations is to complete the task at hand and be paid a full-time 40-hour week.
I understand. So who's going to be responsible for keeping her hours? I mean, the majority of the county employees are salaried.
At the present time, Mr. Galt, I just signed her pay schedule before the meeting, and it's my duty to see that she doesn't run over her hours. And what the main problem is, I mean, we're kind of after the fact right now, is that any part-time employees, the IRS is going to start auditing. Mr. Turner.
You'll make a point. Mr. Steele's motion says that the chair of the county commission having authority to just set hours within 40-hour week to facilitate attendance at meetings. So he has the authority with this motion to change her hours as needed.
Because since we have full-time, I fully will declare that she will be present at the work session and the voting meeting, and it'll save a lot of redundancy in our bookkeeping system, and it's really going to help a lot, and she could take that time off another day that she can get caught up. Because the week before a meeting and the week after, she only has one light week through the month, and still you got to deal with all the phone calls and everybody coming in, and that's what makes this a large caseload. Mr. Kesterson.
I just got a question about what you said. If she's not taking the minutes for us, why would she need to be here?
To help with all the paperwork of keeping up with everything in the motions, to make sure that her and Frank are on the same wavelength. Because you got all your committees and you got all your other things going on that has to be kept up with.
But you said she was going to those committees or preparing the minutes for those committees. So my question is, why would she come to this one since she's not preparing the minutes?
Well, to the point of order, question was called forward and we voted. Can we not move on?
Let's move on.
Sure. Mr. David Galt, you have the floor.
Got a resolution for you to levy additional wheel tax, motor vehicle tax. It'd be the same. It's not doubling the current one, it's just levying an additional 25 on cars, 15 on motorcycles. County attorney's gone through everything, fully under our ability to do it. We have passed it by 2/3, 2 consecutive meetings. At that point, clock starts ticking. The citizens would have 30 days to produce a petition of 10,450 something, 54 votes, I believe, of registered voters, if they wanted on a referendum for a vote. If that petition were to be gathered, then we would have to hold a special called vote for that. That would cost the county, that we would have to pay somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and you're saying to double the wheel tax?
I'm saying we need to be careful with the terminology. It would in essence double it, but we're not doubling the existing wheel tax. We're levying an additional.
You are levying an additional $25 to cars and $15 to motorcycles.
Right.
Is there a second?
Same thing.
Mr. Tucker, you second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second, open for discussion. Mr. Tucker.
I guess what I would like to recognize with this is first a question, and I'll just ask, with the levying of the 25 and the 15, what's the expected income generation, revenue generation for the county? Does anybody have those numbers?
Well, I believe those are on Mr. Potts' handouts, and this is the past couple of years. Wheel tax brought in $1,057,000, $1,096,000.
So it'll be another
2 years.
million or so bucks? Okay. And I guess the thing that I like about this is that right now, the past commission's budget committee, by moving that money out of debt service, has put us in a position where we don't have enough revenue coming into debt service to pay our actual bills. So we're going to have to bring in more revenue. You know, I understand cutting services. I've watched tonight as this commission has passed two times to actually grow our, our outlay, which means we're going to have to raise taxes for those 2 new positions we funded. So the debt, the only way to get rid of it is actually to pay it. We can't make a motion or cut service to get rid of the debt. So we're going to have to come up with more revenue, and the ways that we have to do it are basically property tax or wheel tax, and property tax hits a very small percentage of the citizens of Jefferson County. So you've got all of the debt being levied on a very small amount of people, versus the wheel tax, the way I understand it, and I want to be corrected if I'm incorrect in my understanding, a wheel tax is a lot more wide-reaching, so it covers a whole lot more people with a smaller amount of tax to cover that debt. Is that the idea behind what you're trying to pass, Commissioner Galt?
It is.
Okay, and that's why I like it. Spreads it out more evenly over all the citizenry.
Mr. John McGraw and Mr. Bob Baylor.
Statement first, and statement of appreciation for Commissioner Galt bringing this forward, because I was thinking the exact same thing. We didn't discuss, as we don't, and I thought this was the fairest way to do it. So Commissioner Galt, thank you for doing the homework for us and getting us to this place where we can at least vote on it. The second thing is that the legality of how we do this has been questioned over since last Monday night, and so I know that our county attorney has really researched this in depth, and I just want to be reassured one more time, Counselor, that what we're doing tonight's legal, or at least it's not illegal.
That's correct. The resolution that you have in front of you is a resolution similar to that other counties have used to put a tax in place like you're looking at. And in fact, just to be clear, this resolution is actually creating a new tax under the statute rather than increasing your existing tax. So it's a $25 wheel tax on motor vehicles and a $15 wheel tax on motorized bicycles, scooters, motorcycles. Okay, but yes, it is the way, one of the 3 ways that you would put this tax into place. The other 2 being a private act through the General Assembly or a referendum vote outright. And it does have to be at 2 consecutive meetings. It'll be this meeting and your next meeting.
Mr. Bob Baylor.
Question I have, when we done the first wheel tax, the way I remember it, we had to state exactly what we was going to fund out of that money. In other words, it had to go to the schools or what? Are you saying that we can just put that in debt service?
This resolution specifies that these, at the request of Commissioner Galt, that the revenues be used to reduce or pay principal and interest on loans of the county, that the county's obligated on. However, there is no statutory requirement that these funds be earmarked or designated for anything. Some counties use them for their roads. Some counties use them for, whatever. But this one, the resolution is drafted, the funds are to be used for reduction of principal and interest on loans.
Well, if I remember, it's been a long time ago, the point behind it, for us designating where to go, is to show the public what we're going to do with that money. And that makes a difference to them to where they will not get all those signatures and try to overturn it.
I would imagine
they know what the money's going for.
I would imagine that's exactly why you did it that time, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly why Mr. Galt wanted that designation put in this resolution, is why he asked me to do it. I don't want to speak for him, but I almost remember him saying that.
Anyone else, question or comment? Mr. David Galt, you get to close. Hold on just a second,
I've got
Mr.
one
Scarlett.
question. Well, actually two. One is, if we put this on, we're saying we're doing it to cover the hole that we're in, and we're in a terrible hole. When we get out to 2023, Mr. Potts, or 2024, whatever the...
23 is the last.
Okay. After 2023, starting in 2024, our debt is supposed to go down if we can have a little self-control. If we do that, I would think that maybe we should say to the people, if we're asking them to do that, we need to put a sunset provision in on this. And if we do that, then it automatically, when it gets to that point and we're out of the problem, this would go away. And my other question is, how do we keep, and this might be for Mr. Potts, if we put this in the debt service, as Mr. Galt said, and I think that's a good idea because we've got to have some revenue. If we do that, how do we keep the debt service from being rated? Have you got any suggestions or on how we keep the debt service from being rated, like happened in the prior two budgets, where that money got out of there? How do we keep that from happening again and get into the same hole?
Well, I don't know the history of how it got rated, but my understanding is you can only use these funds to pay debt. You can't just pull it out, is my understanding.
But we've got several components in the debt service, and we've got quarter-cent sales tax, we've got the other wheel tax.
Oh, they put less in.
If they reach in there and take more cents out of property tax out of that, how do we keep, if we're going to plug the hole, how do we keep from somebody making another hole? Any ideas?
Well, I think all that is in control of the county commission, is the decisions to change those allocations of those money, is my understanding. So this group has to change the way the money goes in, and we don't have any control of how it goes out. It's got to go out. Did I? Is that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's fine. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, if it would be proper, I'd like to put that this resolution contain a sunset provision at 2024.
That's an amendment, I'll second it.
You're offering that as an amendment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Seconded by John McGraw. You said it 2024.
That's when Mr. Potts says that we're...
Yes, there's a $2 million drop in debt service, a little more than $2 million in 2024.
If somebody wants to put it back on, then they can put it back on, but at least this commission will be saying that we're doing it for a specific purpose.
You have an amendment to the motion on the floor that's been seconded. Discussion, Mr. Bob Baylor.
Yep. I don't want to discuss it or nothing, but I just want to let you know what happened before. We done this same thing, and we put a time limit on it, put a date, And the day that it came off, we turned it right around and put it back on. A lot of people in this county will swear today that that never did come off, but it did. The day that it came off, we voted to put it
And it
back
probably
on.
will.
Same day, wasn't it?
All I'm doing is trying.
So I'm just telling you, that's dead or that.
Anyone else, question or comment? Miss Katie?
I just have a comment. I mean, I agree with John Neal, but I think, in my mind, we're going to have new debt besides the debt that's on the chart later, so I don't see that it would ever go away once we put the wheel tax in place, because we're going to need more schools. We're going to need another pod to the jail. There's other debt that will incur, so...
Mr. Tucker?
I think that when I started on commission, one of the smartest things that I heard was that as we were going to, anytime we were going to spend money, the commission had to say, where's the money going to come from? And I think this is as smart on the other end, that anytime we put a tax on, I wish they ever one had a sunset. And put commission on notice that, hey, these dollars that you're taking from the taxpayers, it's to pay this off, and then it dies. And then at that point, if other commissions have spent other monies without having proper funding in place, then they can do something at that point to address it. But I think it's a responsible way, anytime you put a tax on, to have a sunset on it.
Mr. David Galton and Mr. Randy Baxley.
John Neal, if you don't mind me using one of your cliches, I don't like this. I don't want to have to do it, but I feel like we have to. And I think our intent to want to put a sunset on it is great, but you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. I mean, just like Bob said, you put a sunset on it, the commission at that time, all they got to do is vote it off and start it all over again.
It just sounds.
I don't want to. I would rather my intent be seen more as getting us out of this problem now, as, I guess, trying to put a sunset on there to make it look better. It is what it is. It's a tax.
Mr. Baxley?
Call for the question.
Question has been called.
I get to close.
You do get to close.
To answer Mr. Gall, I'm not trying to make it look good. It's not pretty in any fashion, and I don't relish this. And as I said in the budget committee, I don't like where we're going. But all I'm saying is, if we're going to do this, then we need to be accountable to the people and at least tell them why we're doing this, and it limits it to that.
Question has been called. We will now vote on the amendment. The amendment is to have a sunset clause in the original motion, that this amendment will go away in 2024. There will be a roll call vote. If you are for the amendment, signify by saying yes. If you're not, signify by saying no. Mr. Clerk.
Katie Huffaker?
No.
Todd Kesterson?
Yes.
Steve Douglas?
Yes.
David Galt?
Yes.
Randy Baxley?
Yes.
Rita Music?
Yes.
Donnie Tabor?
Yes.
John McGraw?
Yes.
Russell Turner?
Yes.
Tim Seals?
Yes.
Sammy Solomon?
Yes.
Robert Blevins?
Yes.
Randy Bales?
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett?
Yes.
Terry Dockery?
Yes.
Robert Tucker?
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael?
Yes.
David Seal?
Yes.
Bob Beeler?
Yes.
Barbara Sheets?
Yes.
The amendment passes 19-1. We are back to the original motion. Is there a question about the original motion? If not, we will vote. Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Katie Huffaker?
Yes.
Todd Kesterson?
Yes.
Steve Douglas?
Yes.
David Galt?
Yes.
Randy Bales? Randy Baxley?
Yes.
Rita Music? Donnie Tabor?
Yes.
John McGraw?
Yes.
Russell Turner?
Yes.
Tim Seals?
Yes.
Sammy Solomon?
No.
Robert Blevins?
Yes.
Randy Bales?
No.
John Neal Scarlett?
Yes.
Terry Dockery?
Yes.
Robert Tucker?
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael?
Yes.
David Seal?
No.
Bob Beeler?
Yes.
Barbara Sheets?
Yes.
17-3, the motion passed. Moving on to the last item, it's not on. Mr. Robert Tucker asked me to put an item on the agenda, and it was purely my mistake. So, Mr. Tucker, you do have the floor at this time, and with my apology.
The idea would be that we begin to look at adequate facilities tax, and I want us to look at it in commission as for what adequate facilities tax purpose is. The purpose of the adequate facilities tax is to slow growth in a community where there's too much growth. It's growing too fast. In fact, there's a limitation. You have to have 20% growth per year in order to put in an adequate facilities tax. And I would guess that the citizens of Jefferson County are ready to see growth in our county again and get rid of these oppressive taxes that are slowing growth. When we get rid of that tax, we can replace it with any other tax, whether it be wheel tax, mineral tax, property tax, or whatever. But right now, the way it's structured in a way that it puts that entire burden on anyone who wants to move to our county. And that's the smallest of the small percentages, and that's how it slows or retards, it kills growth in our county. There are lots of ways to replace it, and I'm open to referring it to Budget Committee. I'm open to addressing it tonight in the full body. Whatever the pleasure of this body is. But I want to bring it before us because I'm ready. The economy's beginning to pick up, and it's time for Jefferson County to begin to grow again and get rid of any taxes that impede that growth.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mr. John McGraw.
There's a lot of debate on adequate facilities tax, whether we ought to slow growth or not. I'm like Commissioner Tucker. I think we need to grow. I think that the more families, the more housing, good quality housing we have in our county, the better our tax base is going to be. And so I am for increasing industry, business, and good families that move to our county because it's such a wonderful place. That's why I'm sitting here tonight. I love this county. I have heard from my constituents, especially in the building industry, that it has really hurt them in a big, big way. $274,000 is a lot of money, but a question I've asked 3, 4, 5 times is, how much does it cost us to administer this tax? And when it gets down to the bottom line, it seems like it costs us almost as much to administer the tax as what we get in $274,000 coming in. Now, I am for less government. And so if we can somehow add another penny or something, somewhere or another, and get rid of another repressive tax, then it makes sense to me. Now, my mind can be changed, but I will tell you that my constituents that have bothered to pick up the phone or come to my farm have said, get rid of this adequate facilities tax. It's hurting building in our county.
Thank you, Mr. McGraw. Mr. Bob Baylor.
I don't disagree with what either one of y'all said, but here's the deal. We already know we're $2 million in debt. It's what we just passed is going to bring in approximately $1 million. We're still $1 million in debt that we don't even have. So that means there's still going to be somebody's got to come up with at least that much more money now. We only just took care of half of it. And that's without any increases, which you know there's going to be some increases from one year to another. But all I'm asking is, please, let's not do away with any kind of revenue that we got coming in now until we get a replacement for it. We can't stand it. Even where it's a bad tax, fine, I'll admit that. I think it is. But it's going to be a lot worse if we do away with it.
Mr. Douglas.
This is going to sound somewhat rambling, but let me preface this statement by saying I think this is a very unfair tax. I know $274,000, $274,095, it's quite a bit of income. But my question is, how much has this $274,000 cost us in property tax that comes in? How many houses or businesses or whatever are not being built because of this? So, you know, I know, and it takes somebody smarter than I am that can forecast better to figure that out for me. But that's just what I'm thinking. And to take this off and then increase the property tax, it's a pay me now, pay me later proposition. So I guess I would love to get rid of this tax, have more building in the community or in the county, and thereby increase our property taxes. Now, if he make any sense out of that, please explain it to me.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Mr. David Goff, then Mr. Terry Dockery.
Just to give a little history, the original intent of the facilities tax was to try to defer the cost of growth in the schools. 100% of the proceeds from that facilities tax goes to the schools. There's no administration cost that you can take out of it, anything. 100% of what brought in goes to the schools. And it was for growth in the schools. Now, I guess I would disagree with you, Bob, about just accepting that it's a bad tax, but keep it. I don't feel that way. It is a bad tax, and its intent has long passed. We've not met the original requirements to impose the tax. We've not met those in years, yet we still impose that tax. But the law is once you've got the tax, you can keep it. So I don't know if the school has some numbers to discount what I'm saying, but I don't believe that the school is growing and that the 200, however many houses that 274,000 correlates to, if it's 40 houses that were built to equal that, are those 40 houses putting that much of a burden on the school system that they deserve that tax just from, like Commissioner Tucker said, just from that small group of people. If we're going to fund the schools, like the whole county fund the schools, $274,000 in a $60 million budget, why should a new house builder fund, why should we pick on the new house builder to fund that little tiny bit of their budget when the school system is the responsibility of the entire county?
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Just a quick comment and then a question. I think I know the answer to your question, but I'll make sure. So far we've talked about keeping it or eliminating it, but I think we also have the option to reduce it. So maybe that's something else for everyone to think about. Maybe we significantly reduce it, but don't eliminate it so that we don't give up the opportunity to have it. So maybe we reduce it, see what that does for a couple of years, and then us or another commission can make a decision from that. Then my question is, and I too have heard a lot of people talk about not liking this tax. If we eliminate it, does that have any effect on our codes, our building codes, and the enforcement of that? Because I've heard a lot of people talk good things about that.
No.
Okay.
Sir.
Larry, you researched this a lot. Can we reduce it?
Yeah, I think.
Can we freeze it? What can we do?
Not too long ago, someone had considered trying to make a motion to do that. It was even talked about reducing it.
Well, Harold Taylor came to me, and that's probably when I asked you about it several months ago.
Yeah.
And was asking about it. His idea was to freeze it.
I think
Of
his
course, he
idea
was
was
on
to,
here when they put it in.
I think his idea was to try to set it at 0, you know, and then, yeah, kind of keep it dormant rather than to repeal it. I don't know if it's his idea, but that was something that was discussed previously.
So we can reduce
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at the max right now. I want to think the dollar per
we're
square
the
foot.
max, yeah.
It was the max, yeah. That's what it came in at and hasn't been changed. It's an impact fee is what it is. It's not even under the part of the code titled out of facilities taxes called the County Powers Relief Act. And I don't know that many counties ever actually passed that tax. I think at the time that Jefferson County had done it, there may have been only 1 or 2.
Loudoun County.
Yeah, and I don't know how many others ever did it after that. When I go to the tax collection association meetings and stuff, sometimes I'll talk about collecting that tax, and they look at me like I'm an alien. They don't know, you know, a lot of these counties, they don't even know what that is. But I think it was put in at $1, which was the max, and it's not been reduced.
Mr. Scarlett, then Mr. Kesterson, then Mr. Tucker.
I think, Mr. Churchwell, if you go to Montgomery County, Clarksville, Fort Campbell up there, they actually move that thing like probably what we should have. They use it as a growth regulator. They raise it up and lower it down, depending on how they want the thing to come in. And that's one thing that I've never seen done, is we've never touched it here. But that might be a good source if we're thinking that we want to do something. We might pick out a county that actually does what it's supposed to with the tax.
And Loudoun may be an indicator too. I remember now that you have a lot of.
I never did follow up with them after we.
And I remember the time that the county commission considered levying this tax in Jefferson County, the numbers that they were looking at as far as growth, it was just, you know, continuous. And about the time this tax went in place was about the time of the economic slowdown.
We did it because we were averaging 60 houses a month back in the day. Then everything tanked.
But it wasn't because of that.
No, that was one of them.
Right, it was just
the economy. The new building inspector made a bad choice there.
Mr. Kesterson.
I think John Neal's made a good point. My feelings on this is that we need to do our homework before we jump to any conclusions, before we do away with it. I think it was put on there to slow growth down some because we were growing faster than we could keep up with our schools, our streets. Everything was just going out of control. But I think you've made a good point. I think the economy had a lot to do with why we're in the shape we're in. I don't put it all back on this tax, but before we make any quick decisions to do away with it, I think we need to do our homework and see what we can do with it, if it can be adjusted, and what the impact's going to be, because Bob's made another good point that, hey, we're in financial trouble. So I would offer that we postpone this and discuss it more in our next work session, maybe come back with some numbers, some ideas legally what we can do before we make any decisions. So I would offer that as a motion to defer it.
Second.
We have a motion. It has been seconded, third and fourth. Mr. Tucker, it's your show. You get to close.
Yeah, I'm definitely not against discussing it in a work session, and I would actually, and I don't know parliamentary procedure, but instead of deferring it, what I was hoping to do was refer this to the budget committee. And
he can't discuss the motion. He's got to discuss the postponement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He can't argue.
I got too many things going on one time.
I didn't make a motion.
No, he didn't make a motion. You called for the question now, so. I'm sorry I didn't hear the call for the question, but the question has been called. So this will be put.
Postpone. His motion overrides. He should be voting on postponement.
All right, I'm sorry. I thought he made
postponement.
A motion.
Parliamentary-wise, is a motion to refer or a motion to postpone?
It's a high privilege motion.
Motion to refer is higher than.
Both, they're equal.
Then a main motion it would be.
You'd have to vote on the motion, postpone it to the next meeting, and then you can make, if it doesn't pass, you can make a motion to refer.
And the reason I was wanting to send it to budget is because even if we discuss it, we're going to end up having to send it there.
Some questions been called.
The question's been
I
called.
object to that question being called. I want to make a point.
Okay, the call to the question's been objected and seconded. We'll vote on the call to the question. All in favor of the call to the question signify by raising your right hand. We got 9. Nays?
Can't raise your left hand, don't count.
Left-handed. Got 10. You have 11, nays win.
Okay, so my point is, I'll be real quick. I know you all want to get to the vote. And I would just ask that instead of us postponing it, that we instead go ahead and move forward by referring it to Budget Committee. We can still do all of our homework. We can still discuss it in our next work session, but we've given it to Budget Committee to do some of this homework. We've assigned it to the committee that actually needs to look at this tax. And the idea behind it being a repressive tax and the idea of getting rid of it, actually bringing in more tax, is like this. If you have 40 acres of land and the assessment on that's $125,000, the value of it, there's not a whole lot of tax revenue off that $125,000 piece of land. But if that 40 acres is developed into 40 homes at $250,000 each, that's $10 million worth of assets. So you've got tax revenue coming in on $10 million, the same 40 acres, instead of tax revenue coming in on $125,000. So by actually eliminating this tax or getting rid of this tax, we can actually increase our tax base. That's the idea. But at this point, I don't know how to try to get it referred to Budget Committee, parliamentary-wise, to do that, but I would love to. I'm happy discussing it in our March meeting, but I would like for Budget Committee to address it, and I'm not sure, how do I do that, Mr. Parliamentarian?
I'll be glad to, as chair, to put it on the Budget Committee and we can move on.
Thank you.
But you've got to vote on.
We will vote on the original motion to defer to the work session in March. Does everyone understand what we're doing?
Deferred, referred, whatever.
If you're deferring it,
I can put it on the
it's still going to be on budget, so
It's still going to be on budget. Do you want to vote or not?
If you want to remove your motion, then I've referred it to Budget Committee. If you want to keep your motion, that's fine, because either way, Budget Committee said they'd accept it.
as long as it'll show up on the agenda for the next work session, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
I'll put it on the agenda for the next work session, not a problem.
Thank you. Okay.
Is there no objection? We can't have a motion to adjourn until we say we're going to have beer board in a minute. Okay. It's a different meeting, you are correct. Do I have a second on a motion to adjourn? Second.